Fellow human beings, Power Gamer here. 2023 was a massive year for video games. I mean, we had some absolute juggernauts. So, much like last year, I'm going to be counting down my personal favorites. And once again, I'd like to say I didn't play everything, so my list will vary quite a lot from other people's. Like, I'll just say right now, I didn't play Baldur's Gate 3, so that's not going to be on here. Anyway, these are my top 10 games of 2023. Number 10. SpongeBob SquarePants, The Cosmic Shake. Starting off the list is a game that, while nothing crazy, was a lot better than I think most people expected. The Cosmic Shake is a sequel/successor to Battle for Bikini Bottom, one of the most beloved licensed games of the 2000s, developed by Purple Lamp Studios, the same team that did that game's remaster. And as a die-hard SpongeBob fan, I think this is a fun time. For starters, the game looks great, the colors are so vibrant, and the levels are extremely varied. All of the voice actors from the show reprise their roles, which makes the cutscenes and dialogue fantastic to listen to. And thankfully, this game has great writing. It's filled with both original jokes and references to the show, which many fans will appreciate. On top of that, the game itself is a lot of fun. Because the story involves alternate dimensions and timelines, the game is able to have tons of variety while still paying homage to various episodes of the series. And it is a legitimately solid 3D platformer. There's some really cool level designs and platforming challenges, and you get a bunch of new abilities as you go through the game. Sure, this isn't going to give major platformers like Mario and Sonic a run for their money, but if you're a fan of SpongeBob, I think you'll enjoy this. It's no masterpiece, but for a modern, licensed cartoon game, I don't think it needs to be. Remember, this game came out the same year as this. Number 9. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. The follow-up to one of the most successful Star Wars games ever made, Jedi Survivor had a lot to live up to, and to some people it didn't quite meet those expectations, but it's still a solid sequel. The graphics have seen a decent upgrade due to the more powerful hardware, the voice acting is once again fantastic, the music is as good as most Star Wars properties, and it retains the amazing gameplay from the first game. Once again, we have arguably the best lightsaber combat ever, and it actually lets you keep most of the new moves you got in Fallen Order. You don't have to unlock them all over again. Oh, thank God. I will admit, though, it doesn't do that much to improve on what came before, and while it still makes it a good game, it can be seen as an underwhelming sequel. And sadly, it's also held back a bit, at least for me, by the story. It's not bad, but it's nowhere near as good as the first one, which had this great sense of mystery and some of the best characters in Star Wars history. But while it's a little disappointing in those areas, this is still a pretty good game. It retains everything that was awesome about the last one, and it does add some quality of life improvements. It may not be as mind-blowing as Fallen Order was, but it's still a great journey in a galaxy far, far away. Number 8. Sonic Superstars. After Sonic Mania, a lot of people are hoping for another new 2D Sonic game in that style, and while Sonic Superstars isn't quite that, it is still a really fun time. The graphics are a great blend of 2D and 3D, which might not look as crisp as Mania, but it allows for some really cool background elements. The levels in this game are super fun, and while they may look familiar, they have some designs we've never seen in a Sonic game. The new Chaos Emerald powers are an amazing addition to the gameplay, the bonus levels are probably the best in the series, and it did the unthinkable and actually got rid of lives. Hell yeah! You can still choose between Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, plus we finally have classic Amy playable, and all 4 characters are really distinct and fun to use. You can even switch between them in between levels, which can not only help with progression, but all of them have levels only they can access, adding much more replay value. I would have liked to put this game higher, but sadly it's held back by the boss fights, which range from semi-decent to straight up awful. But aside from that, this is a really fun game. It might not be the best 2D Sonic game, but it is one you definitely should not skip. Number 7. Final Fantasy XVI. I know some people were a bit mixed on this one, but as someone who's only played 2 other Final Fantasy games, I think this is a really solid entry. Sure, some of the other ones are better, but this game is still really good. Much like 15 and 7 Remake, it goes for an action RPG approach rather than turn-based, and it does that really well. The combat in this game is a lot of fun. Chaining combos and using magic abilities is really satisfying to master. We even get other styles of gameplay thrown in too, which can be really fun, if a little pointless. The graphics are absolutely gorgeous, the voice acting is great, the music is incredible, as is standard for the series, and the story is really engaging, with us following a prince-turned-soldier named Clive, who has to restore peace to a war-torn world after the death of his family. Not only are the world and characters interesting, but this game has some seriously dark and brutal moments, even by Final Fantasy standards. While this doesn't reinvent the Final Fantasy formula like many other games before it, it is still a really good entry that lives up to the legacy of this iconic series. Number 6. WarioWare Move It. This is the first WarioWare game I have ever played, and wow do I need to check out the rest of the series, because this game is stupidly fun. Like the rest of the series, you're given a bunch of bite-sized micro-games, and you have a very short amount of time to figure out what to do and actually do it. They just come flying at you, which makes things insanely fast-paced, and with how many there are, it never gets dull. And thanks to the Joy-Con's motion controls and IR camera, we get what is likely some of the most creative and hectic micro-games the series has ever seen. Almost all of these games are hilarious and tons of fun, to the point where screwing up feels more funny than frustrating. Throw in a story mode, which gives us some delightfully stupid cutscenes, and a party mode, which leads to a great time with friends, and you've got yourself a game that you can get tons of mileage out of. This is one of, if not the best use of the Switch's Joy-Cons I've ever seen. It is so much fun going through all these micro games. I might not have too much knowledge of the WarioWare series, but if this is an indication of their quality, then I'm glad I finally got to see what I've been missing.
Groovy.
Number 5. Pikmin IV. The long awaited next entry in the Pikmin series, Pikmin fans were sure eating good this year. Not only was this game released, but the first 2 games were remade for the Switch, meaning the entire mainline series is now playable on one system. Pikmin IV had a lot of hype, and it totally delivered. It retains the strategy and time management gameplay we all know and love, has a very unique story with a rescue squad having to save various stranded explorers, the game looks absolutely gorgeous, there's tons of unique areas to explore, it even brings back the highly divisive cave system from Pikmin 2 and actually makes it much better. The feeling of exploring and successfully collecting everything you can in as short of time as possible is incredible. This game is super addictive. Finding new areas and getting new upgrades really makes you feel like you're actually making progress. Add in some extremely charming writing, all of the Pikmin from the last games as well as new ones, and the pure adorableness that is Owachi, and you've got yourself what might be the greatest Pikmin game ever made. Can't wait to see what Pikmin 5 is going to be like when it releases in 2039. Number 4. The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. Easily the most anticipated game of the past year, Tears of the Kingdom had arguably the most to live up to in the entire Zelda franchise, and that's saying a lot. Breath of the Wild was a monumental hit, so the idea of making something even bigger got a lot of people talking. But when it finally released, it totally delivered on everything, except for the price. It is very much a sequel to Breath of the Wild, as it retains the most beloved elements while also expanding and even drastically changing stuff. Once again, the open world is absolutely enormous and filled with secrets to discover. Despite the map essentially being reused, it still feels quite different, as many of the areas have been altered. Plus, we have 2 new planes to explore in the underground and the sky. The combat is really satisfying to nail, the shrines are still pretty fun to figure out, and this game has actual full-fledged dungeons, while Breath of the Wild didn't. And the new powers Link has are a vast improvement over the last game. There are so many different ways to use these abilities, and as a result, almost every puzzle has more than one solution to it. And it goes without saying, this game is absolutely gorgeous. While there are still some issues people had with the last game that weren't fixed, like the weapons break even easier now, and the rain is still a stupid mechanic, it doesn't matter, because the core game is incredible. While I didn't quite lose my mind over this game like so many other people did, it is still a fantastic Zelda game that will stand the test of time. Well, until about 6 or 7 years later, when everyone says this game wasn't actually that good. Number 3. Super Mario Bros. Wonder. After the new Super Mario Bros. Games, a lot of people thought 2D Mario had become stale, but after a decent break, Maker excluded, this was a welcome return. My god, this is one of the most brilliant and creative Mario games ever. Instead of relying on standard level themes, Wonder goes all out, either putting a new spin on older ones or giving us something completely new. On top of that, we have the largest cast of playable characters in Mario history, tons of new enemies, and a really solid list of new power-ups. This game is absolutely filled to the brim with stuff to collect. From these purple coins you can use in the shop, Wonder Seeds which not only let you progress but also give you a new spin on the already brilliant levels, and of course the badges which give you all sorts of new abilities that make the game even more fun. There is so much to do in this game, it's outstanding. It is more content than probably any other 2D Mario game. I'm glad to see Nintendo experiment more with their most successful franchise because it resulted in one of, if not the best 2D Mario game ever made. Number 2. Sea of Stars. I didn't think I was gonna put this game so high on the list, but wow, it is amazing. Sea of Stars was designed as a spiritual successor to Chrono Trigger, you know, one of the greatest RPGs ever made, and if you ask me, it's on equal levels with that game, if not succeeding it. This is one of the best indie games I've ever played in my life. The story, while simple, is very engaging, the characters are super endearing and likable, the writing is great, the music is phenomenal, and good God, this game looks absolutely gorgeous. I think this is the best pixel art I've ever seen in my life. But honestly, the best thing about this game is the combat. It takes the traditional RPG formula and really turns it on its head. You can use basic attacks and magic like most games, but it also uses timed hits a la the Mario RPGs. You can absorb energy to make your attacks more powerful. You build up this combo meter to unleash super moves. Using certain types of attacks can stop an enemy spell altogether. And believe me, that's just the tip of the iceberg. This game didn't get as big a fanfare as some other giant indie games, and I think that's a shame, because this is an absolutely phenomenal RPG that I cannot recommend enough. And the number one best game of 2023 is Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man on PS4 is one of my favorite games of all time, so as you can imagine, I was super hyped for this game, and safe to say, it did not disappoint. It does exactly what a sequel should do. It takes everything that was established in both the first game and the side game, Miles Morales, improves on them, and adds tons of new stuff. Being able to switch between both Peter and Miles is an awesome gameplay concept, and both characters feel different enough to keep the game feeling fresh. The combat is vastly improved from before since you have so much more abilities, and using them is significantly easier, allowing you to mix it up even more than previously. The swinging is still one of the most fun things in any video game ever, and it adds these new web wings, which let you move even faster. The story is just as good as last time, if not better, since both Peter and Miles get really great arcs about what they want as people. Kraven legit really works as the main villain, since he's hunting down villains from the last game, and it even brings in the symbiote, which is done amazingly both from a story and gameplay perspective. I've heard some people say this game played it a bit too safe, but I disagree. This kept everything that was awesome about the last two games, and still added enough to warrant it being a sequel. I know I'm gonna get a ton of mileage out of this game, and it easily takes the top spot as my favorite game of 2023.
But like I said, this year was a banger, so there were still tons of stuff I missed. In fact, I should probably take a look at the few of the big games I heard people talking about. I retract my previous statement.